Okay, welcome back everybody to San Francisco. This is Dev Live at Oracle Open World, and I'm here with Wim Coekaerts.
Hi.
Our Vice President of the Linux organization, right?
Yeah, Linux and virtualization, yeah. And Solaris, sorry.
And Solaris,
yeah, we just recently merged Solaris, Linux, so operating systems, and virtualization, both Spark and x86.
Okay, great. So I wanted to have a conversation today about open source and Oracle. Maybe we can start off. You're going to do a session tomorrow. Maybe we can start off by giving a little bit of an overview of what you're going to be talking about in that session.
Sure. So tomorrow I have the State of the Penguin. That's the title of the talk. I have been doing that, I guess, for the last 10 or 11 years, except last year. I missed last year. And it's basically an overview. What have we done over the last year with Linux and virtualization? And then what are we doing going forward? Why are we doing the things we're doing? What are our contributions upstream? What are some of the interesting technologies that we see coming up? Docker, Kubernetes, and such are, of course, very important. We are doing a lot with container development, and one of the topics is about secure containers. How do we secure them? You know, what are the sort of tests that we run? And ultimately, we want to do multi-tenancy so that you can run containers in a secure way. And so that's the talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have some questions just basically around where do we contribute? Why do we contribute as a company? We have this is a very large company. We have thousands of engineers, and we contribute to many projects, but it doesn't seem to be centralized under any one individual. So basically, that lends to a lot of questions about what's your strategy, you know, as a company. And so what's a summary of basically where you see our strategy is?
Well, that could be a big question to answer. So let me try and frame it a little bit. I think there's a couple of things. One is we started most of the open source work that we did at Oracle started around Linux. We had Linux development. We helped make Linux a better operating system to run Oracle products, and then either through acquisitions or through sort of just organic growth, we added other components. Of course, through Sun, we had Java, we had VirtualBox, we had a number of other products that we open sourced, and then we've done another number of acquisitions over the years. And I think in general, the best way to describe is we're a company that has to provide software and services and hardware to our customers. And we compete with other companies that do that, and so we need to find the best way to build that. And so we can either write everything ourselves, or we combine the best things that are potentially open source into a larger product, and then we offer a full service on it. So for us, open source is about development and about participating in a project, and use that for us to build a bigger service around. And you see that when you talk about cloud and so forth, where it's sort of a collection of different things. So we have software that we wrote that's not open source, and we have software that we wrote that is. And in the end, it comes down to we're providing services and products to customers, and we want to do that in a way that helps them the best. And so that's really the core to it. Now, that also means that, you know, as you said, we're a large company, so we have a product division around applications, a product division around database, cloud, virtualization, and so forth. MySQL, of course, not to forget MySQL. And so, of course, each group has their own little world that they play in and contribute to that particular thing or pieces that are related to it. So we contribute to the Linux kernel, but we also contribute to the C++ libraries, to GCC, and the whole ecosystem, or Docker and other things, so the whole ecosystem around the operating system. And then we contribute to Zen, to KVM, so we have the hypervisor piece, and we have QEMU. So there's a pretty big, broad range of it. And one of the things that one of the, I guess, drawbacks you could say that we have is because we have so many different product groups, when they talk to developers or customers, they present their own little world.
Right.
And so for that developer talking to that group, it might sound like we're only doing this little thing. And when you walk around here, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing and a lot of open source pieces. And lots of developers come out of a conference like Open World and say, oh wow, Oracle really is very involved in this. If you look at the Kubernetes stuff they talked about this morning, Mark Cabbage, the different projects we put on GitHub, Railcar and Smith and other projects, there's a lot of interesting stuff there that's relevant for the future, not just the past, but we have a huge amount of open source contribution happening every day.
So would you say that we have to do more tying things together to tell a better story, that how these things all fit together, to help people understand that it is a very serious amount of code that we're contributing to a large number of projects?
Sure, yeah, I think it makes sense to do that, but at the same time, I'm a believer in show the code. And so the more we keep doing this and we put more stuff on GitHub and we collect everything better, the more people will just see it. And I prefer to tweet a link to a repository over a press release that has fancy words in it and talks about it. And so it's more about doing rather than just talking about it. And the other thing is that there are multiple ways of participating in open source, right? One is you contribute to a third party. The other one is that you have some code that you wrote that wasn't open source, you release it. And then the third part is where you start from scratch. And the first one, you're a contributor to a third party thing. So your contributions are based on where in the life cycle you wrote something. In the second one, it can be large pieces of code, but other people don't know it. So it's very hard to create a community around it. So it might be interesting from a press release point of view, right? But in the end, you're not going to get a real community around it. And the third one is really starting from scratch. And I think you're seeing more of that today.
And that's actually, that's the things that we're seeing move over to GitHub, right?
Exactly, yeah.
There's
So
over 100
Railcar
repos there now, and a few hundred engineers.
Yes, absolutely. And that will grow. And I think that's the right place for us to get other people to contribute and work together as a team, rather than owning it and pulling things in. It's much different.
Okay, I want to bridge over to something that is really focused on developers. You've been an engineer for a long time. You've been working with open source, obviously, for a long time. What are the benefits, when you talk to young engineers? Because obviously, as Oracle moves, through time, we hire lots of people. What are the benefits of young engineers getting involved in open source?
It's an interesting question. So, for me, Linux was the first open source product that I got involved in back in 92, shortly after Linus put his email out, and it gave me access to source code where I wasn't able to get access to source code from an operating system. So it gave me the ability to learn something without the restrictions of you're working at a company, you only see this much and stuff. So I think it helped me get access to code. The other one was that Linux is maybe a little bit different than other communities, but you create friends working together abroad. We had folks in the UK and here in the US, and I was in Belgium at the time. And so you kind of learn to deal with development where you're not in the same room. It's kind of interesting because it's typically different at companies. And it's, for some people, it's building a resume, because you can do stuff before you work at a company and you can show it. Right? You can say, hey, I worked on a database from somebody, but you can't show the code.
It's real.
Yeah,
it's not just a project in school, it's actually real.
Yeah, and I do think that helps, because there's a sense of pride when you do that. So those are probably the big ones, is really being able to collaborate across a large group of people and seeing your work out in the open. If you're a developer on a product within a company, then you can show off your colleagues, but that's where it ends. And of course, it's in the product that goes to customers, but you can't pinpoint it. So I think those are pretty attractive reasons.
So is open source just normal now in terms of development methodology? I mean, years ago it was new and it was very disruptive. But I was at OSCON 6 months or so ago, and I hadn't been for many years. And I just noticed that it just seems all very normal, very understated now. All the big vendors are involved to one degree or another. They have lots of engineers out, obviously out in these communities, and they have marketing campaigns wrapped around them, and it just seems like normal business. Is that an accurate perception?
I think it is, but the open source world has changed quite a bit too. So when Linux became popular for enterprises in the mid 2000s, it was about free. It was, oh, there's this operating system, it can compete with the other ones, and it'll be free. It's open source. And for a few years, when we talked to customers, it was all about, what is your open source strategy, but focused on we're going to save a lot of money. And then over the years, that has changed to, well, Linux as a project's free, but Linux as a product, I need to pay support for, because I'm not going to run random stuff. Right. And so as companies have started to understand that open source is a development model, and in the end you probably still end up paying somebody for services, I think that has made it more accepting for people to use it in companies as well. And I think the other thing that's happened is we're going away from large companies just being purchasers of software, and pretty much every company now does development. And I think that wasn't the case a long time ago. We had sectors where they did that. And so because of that, I think there's a lot of folks taking these pieces and kind of putting stuff together. And of course in the cloud, it's also very, very common to use open source components.
Right. Interesting. Okay, final question. Cloud and open source. These two big meta trends in the industry. What's the relationship between the two?
Well, I guess I can think of two things. One is a lot of cloud infrastructure is written using open source projects, and it makes it easy. There's so many different things out there, so it's easy to pull pieces in, build a service around it, and make that available. So that's one place where open source and cloud meet. So it provides the software for the infrastructure pieces. I think the other one is that in the past, when cloud started to happen, it wasn't for traditional applications. It was for sort of new cloud native stuff. Right. And there weren't any non-open source cloud native apps, right? And so it was natural. People were just cobbling things together. It was small. It was written by themselves because there was no market for it yet. So now that the cloud market is maturing more, and with Oracle you have all our commercial products in the cloud as services. Right. So you'll see more of a hybrid, right? And a lot of the partners that we have here don't necessarily have open source products, but they're now slowly starting to move into the cloud. So so I think it was initially there because that was it, but we'll see more of a mix now, and that's good.
Right. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and good luck in your session tomorrow. And I hope to be there as well. And I'm sure we'll see you at future events, and we can have future conversations as well.
Okay.
And for Dev Live, this is Jim Grisanzio, and we'll sign off now. And another session is coming up soon, so stay right there. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.